Good morning. Right, let's do a news roundup, shall we? Start with a bit of Africa as is becoming normal now. Sudan wants UN peace envoy to step down. Well, I mean, I think that would probably, be best for Sudan. It's pretty clear that the UN peace envoys do the exact opposite. So I stand by Sudan in this particular matter. EU to follow ECOWAS in imposing sanctions on Niger. And of course, we had that awful woman quite gleeful about the fact that people in Niger had less access to already scarce electricity, food, and medicine. Um, I think that what we have to remember is that the EU needs Niger in the long term a lot more than Niger needs the EU. Uganda's president has reacted over the World Bank's decision to halt new loans. It's unfortunate that the World Bank and other actors dare to want to coerce us into abandoning our faith, culture, principles, and sovereignty using money. They really underestimate all Africans. In a nutshell, yeah. I mean, democracy's great, isn't it? Unless people are united in being against something that the West disagrees with, and then all of a sudden democracy is irrelevant and it's about bribery and corruption. Trying to bribe people into change the bones of their country so that they can receive loans from the World Bank is quite telling of who the World Bank are and what we're really dealing with here. Time for public diplomacy. Nigerian envoy, Nigerian envoy meets coup leaders in Niger, and this chap here in the with the big shoulder pads, I've been told is Mr. Sanusi, and he is like a leading kind of religious dude in Nigeria, and he's been kind of running the diplomatic line, which is really, really great because that needs to be open. And I saw a wonderful video of him being welcomed into Niger. Um, so I'm hoping that there can be some diplomacy and something that relates to what the public want, because at the moment it feels like there's a lot of guys in suits that are just doing what white guys in suits want them to do, and then there's the actual people of Niger and Nigeria who want none of this. If France loses Niger, it loses everything, Vice President of the Nigerian NGO says. It's crucial for Paris to maintain its influence over Niger, as the Department of France from Niger will reject it from the 7th to the 30th place in the world among the largest economies. Now, that is going to happen, let's face it. But also, what I want to say is that if France were to even turn around today, I think, and say, look, we're not going to keep this threat of war. We're not going to carry on trying to turn your brothers against you. We actually just want to do trade. We want things to be reasonable between us. We'll remove our armies, and we just want a successful trading relationship with Niger. Then all of this goes away. But for Niger, this is an existential crisis. They are not simply going to roll over and allow the French to use them in this way. The French are the seventh largest economy because Niger is the lowest. That's slavery, plain and simple. And once again, I remind everyone that the EU needs Niger and Africa a lot more than Africa needs the EU. That's the reality. It might not look that way in the short term for these sticking plaster solution experts, but in the long term, that's what's coming. So we'd best get some humble pie and come to the negotiation table as equals. ECOWAS intervention in Niger would be suicidal in the fight against terrorism. What is terrorism? I don't mean to sound philosophical, but if there's a group of armed um, military men that are in a different country and they are keeping the produce from that country and using it to fuel the economy of a different country, so theft. And if there's next to no electricity and there's limited food and medical supplies in that country because of these armed men, is that not terrorism? Because it is in my book. So I don't understand what they're talking about. You know, the UN peacekeepers go in and they say, "Oh, we're here to prevent terrorism." What terrorism are they talking about? Because they're not stopping the French. Most people in Mali that I've spoken to said when the French Foreign Legion swapped for the UN peacekeepers, it was the same dudes in different uniforms. So, what terrorism are they fighting here? They've turned it into a mythical beast so that they don't have to do any work. That's the reality, and they can carry on terrorizing. Kenyan government opposition reportedly begin talks to solve political crisis. Just wanted to take a moment to look at Kenya, which looks incredible. And goes on. This goes on to talk about possibly doing an audit of the last election. It talks about looking at reconstruction of the electoral body, respect for political parties, and inclusion of the opposition in national issues. And what they're saying is that they have to do this because of the amount of protests in Kenya from local people. So there is obviously a great amount of skepticism amongst normal Kenyans about what's going on and who's supporting and running them. So this is really positive. They're probably terrified that there's going to be another coup in Kenya. That's the reality. So they're probably trying to do a bit of damage control after what's gone on in Niger. I wouldn't be surprised if a number of African leaders decided that. What Ukraine really needs is capitulation, which might open the way to peace. I absolutely agree with Dmitry here. I think Medvedev. I think that he is absolutely correct. But I think that economically, logically, what Ukraine needs to do is capitulate to Russia entirely, and then they won't have to pay back these ridiculous loans that the West has forced upon them. TASS, the transfer of Polish troops to the border with Belarus could provoke a third world war, says Philippe Philop. Florian Philippot, leader of the French Patriots Party. Don't tell them that. The Polish have been wanting another world war since the Germans lost the last one. So I really, really think we should keep shh about their capacity to start yet another world war. Thank you. New Zealand, for the first time, has published a list of national security threats, including the Russian Federation and China. Now, I'm intrigued as to when either the Russian Federation or China have threatened or attacked New Zealand. If anyone could give me any information about that, that would be great, because I have to say, I've not seen anything about it. I've not seen any attacks on New Zealand from either of these places. So how are these places the biggest threat to New Zealand? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Joe Biden called China a time bomb, and at the same time, the US president said he did not want to harm Beijing. China is in many cases a ticking time bomb. The White House press pool quoted Biden as saying, the American leader believes that China is facing economic difficulties, including high employment. When bad people have problems, they do bad things. Yeah, touche, Mr. Biden. Biden claimed he was seeking a rational relationship with China. I don't want to harm China, but I'm watching. Okay, Joe. Yeah. And he's also asked the US Congress to allocate 13 billion in military aid to Kiev, as well as 8.5 billion in additional economic and security assistance to Ukraine and other countries, but reported by the Washington Post. At what point are Americans going to stop allowing this man to steal all their money? Because that is all that this is. This is just plain theft. The 75th Emmy Television Awards were scheduled to take place on the 18th of September and have been rescheduled to January because of a strike by actors and writers in Hollywood, who I'm sure make more money writing the script of Ukraine winning on Twitter. So I can see why they've had some time off. That's time for this video. I will do another one. I've got a couple more articles to share. Do consider supporting me. Diplomacy is free.